Jessica, my wife, was done by 3 of them. Tom was going at her like the pig he is, while Jake was stuck in the backyard like it was all a joke. A game. And there was Rick, cleaning her mouth with his stuff. It was my nuclear revenge time. But let's start from the beginning, right after your subscription to this channel. I don't know when it started exactly, but I hadn't been blind, not completely anyway. You don't spend 10 years with someone and miss the little shifts. Jessica pulled away slowly at first, skipping out on our Friday night dinners, forgetting stupid things like how I like my coffee, not saying I love you the same way. For a while, I thought it was just life. You know, people go through stuff. Work gets stressful. Hell, maybe I wasn't being the best husband either. But then I started noticing the stuff. The late nights were too frequent. Some marketing event, some client pitches that always seemed to run a little too late. Fine, sure. That wasn't what made me feel sick, though. It was the way she'd keep her phone by her side, like it was glued to her. She'd swipe it before I could even ask who messaged her. And when I'd walk in on her texting, Jessica's eyes would flick up, barely meeting mine, before she tucked the phone under her leg or took it to the next room. I ignored it for months like an idiot, told myself maybe I was imagining it or that I was paranoid. But you don't just shake that feeling, the one gnawing at your gut every time she smiled too long at her screen. So when she left her phone unattended on the counter one night, screen lit up with a notification, I knew this was it. No looking back. She was upstairs doing God knows what. So I grabbed the phone, thumb shaking just a little, and scrolled. It wasn't hard to find. These weren't texts buried under a pile of mundane stuff about work. They were front and center, right there in the open, like she either didn't care or thought I was too stupid to check. There they were: Tom, Jake, Rick. The same group I hung out with every weekend, my boys, my drinking buddies. We built stuff together, got drunk together, trusted each other. And now they were sending texts to my wife. And it was explicit. Tom was the worst, practically gloating about how good she was in bed. Can't wait for Thursday. Last time was insane. Didn't think you could handle all of us. That was Tom, the cocky son of a bitch. I call the backyard this time, said Jake, straight to the point, like we were discussing whose turn it was to drive the truck. Rick didn't even bother with words. Just sent a photo of his tool, like some teenager without an ounce of shame. I couldn't move for a moment. Just stood there staring at that damn phone. My chest felt tight, my hands glued to the screen as if maybe there was more I needed to see. Something that would make sense of this, something that would undo the knot forming in my throat. Instead, I scrolled, and it only got worse. Jessica wasn't some pawn here. She was into it, leading them, teasing them back with comments of her own. Missing you guys. Can't wait to feel you again, she'd written. Our house. My bed. I stopped reading. I couldn't stomach it anymore. I didn't throw the phone. Didn't scream. That wasn't me. Wasn't what I did when stuff hit the fan. I wasn't the guy who exploded. The anger came in a slow, cold burn. It sat at the base of my spine and spread, creeping into every muscle, every breath. And the more I felt it, the more focused I became. I didn't want revenge in some chaotic, blind rage. I wanted it planned, precise. After all, I wasn't the one who strayed here. I wasn't the one who invited those jerks into my life, into my marriage. But now they were going to pay for crossing me. That's when the idea clicked. A trap. The next evening, Jessica mentioned some nonsense about a late dinner with clients. I kissed her on the cheek like usual, told her I was spending the night over at a buddy's place. None of which was true. The second she left, I went down to the garage. There was this cheap industrial-strength glue I'd picked up for a flooring project I never got around to. Back then, it was just another unfinished task. But tonight, it was about to become a masterpiece. I brought the glue upstairs, quiet, calculated. I worked from room to room, making sure none of this seemed off. Cameras first, I wasn't going to miss a damn thing. I installed them all around the bed, at angles to catch every corner. They'd be on full display soon, whether they realized it or not. Then came the glue. I imagined their smug, filthy faces as I rubbed that thick, nasty stuff across the bed frame, under the sheets, along the headboard. My fingers smeared it carefully across the spots I figured they'd be touching, grabbing. A laugh nearly clawed its way out of my throat at the thought of them. Sweating, naked, and then the look on their faces when they realized they couldn't move. The next evening, I sat in my car, engine off. The only sound was my own breathing. My grip on the wheel was tight, knuckles white, but I wasn't about to rush in like some idiot. Patience. I'd been waiting for this moment, and now wasn't the time to lose control. At 11 p.m. on the dot, I saw the headlights. Tom's beat-up old car rolled up the driveway like it had every other time before. A few minutes later, Jake and Rick arrived, all casual. Like this was just another night for them. They didn't even try to hide it anymore. Cocky bastards. The three of them strolled up to the front door, laughing, probably thinking this was just another night of fun and games. They went inside, like it was their house, like it was any other Saturday night, like they didn't have a care in the world. Well, tonight was different. I waited a beat, calming the storm inside my chest, before slipping out of the car. Cautious, quiet. Moving up the driveway, I kept my eyes locked on the door. No lights on below, just like I expected. All the action was upstairs. I slipped through the front door like a shadow, not making a sound. The place was eerily quiet, except for the faint noises drifting down from upstairs. I already knew what I'd find when I got up there, but hearing it was a whole different kind of reality. The panting, the sounds of pleasure, crashed over me like knives being pushed into my sides. Calm. Stay calm. On autopilot, I moved up the stairs, one slow step at a time, my feet barely whispering against the floorboards. The door to our bedroom was open just a crack, letting me see enough without them even noticing. My heart slammed against my ribs as I took in everything. Jessica, my wife, was being done from both ends. Tom was slamming into her like the pig he is, while Jake was in the backyard like it was all a joke, a game. And there was Rick, shoving and cleaning her mouth with his junk. It was like something out of the dirtiest video you can imagine. Except this wasn't a movie. This was real. And it was in my house. My goddamn house. Blood rushed to my head, every instinct screaming at me to rush in there and end it. But I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I walked back to the hallway where I'd stashed the bucket. I'd watched enough. More than enough. The bucket in my hand felt heavier than it had a minute ago. I moved toward the door, each step careful, determined, my boots barely making a sound on the hardwood floor. I could hear them, laughter, moans, the kind of crap that sticks in your head like a song you hate but can't stop hearing. Without pausing to think, I gripped the door handle and shoved it open. That was all Tom got out before the contents of the bucket, thick, grayish glue, splashed across the room. A wet slap as it hit their tangled bodies, cutting off any other words. Chaos hit like a bomb going off. Jessica screamed. A muffled, panicked noise, and twisted, but it was too late. The glue had already begun setting, locking her and the three idiots she'd chosen to humiliate herself with into their filthy positions. Tom's face twisted from shock to sheer panic. What the hell, man? Jake let out some garbled curse as he tried to peel himself off Jessica, but the glue worked fast. Too fast. The more they moved, the worse it got. I can't get out. Tom was thrashing, but it didn't matter. His junk was stuck in her, glued right in place like it had been welded there. Jake wasn't any better off, gritting his teeth as he yanked uselessly at his own hips, glued deep in the backyard. Rick, though, his situation might have been the worst. His face turned red as he fought to pull his junk out of her mouth, but all that came out were gags as the sticky substance locked him there, sealed tight against her lips. God damn it, Jake shouted. What the hell did you do, man? I stood there, arms crossed, not even blinking. Their naked bodies flailed against one another, each desperate tug trapping them even more. Tom grunted hard, pulling as sweat dripped from his brow. Jessica's wide eyes met mine, and she let out another muffled cry, gagging against Rick's junk lodged in her throat. Her perfect little world shattered. I stood there, arms crossed, feeling lighter than I had in months. The glue was setting perfectly, trapping them in their grotesque positions. Tom's face was beet red, veins bulging on his neck like he still couldn't believe what was happening. Jake kept sputtering. This isn't what it looks like, right? Like that mattered now. Rick just stared at me wide-eyed, like a deer caught in headlights. I'd always thought he was the smarter one. Guess not. And Jessica locked eyes with me, her face pale, her wide, doll-like eyes